let's do an introduction. Nicki, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. My name is Nicki Doble. I'm the founder and MD of a group called 99th Floor, and we do digital transformations, or basically the execution of digital transformation. Lots of people talk about it, but it's a bit harder to start it. So we help you with the starting and the execution of that.
Oh, well. Follow that. G'day, I'm Mark Ghiasy. I help startups go to market, so sales and marketing. Currently helping a fairly large startup. We've raised way too much money out of the US. Prefer to work with a lot smaller startups, so kind of bootstrapping, have a product, have gone to market, and a global day one, and usually tech businesses only. So that's what I do on a daily basis.
Hi everyone, I'm Laurel Gray. I've got a business called Get Digital Flow, and you probably have this problem where it's getting increasingly difficult to choose the right best-of-breed cloud applications for your business. Like, what do you choose for a CRM, your project management software, your email systems, everything? We essentially consult with SMEs to help them pick the right tools in a growing landscape of different options.
Thanks, James Gray. I've had about 12 years in the business and meeting rooms, first with Regis, big serviced office company, then with Servcorp, a smaller but more expensive serviced office company, and then I saw the light, and I've come along and joined Karstens, and Mr. Hendrik Karsten, who owns Karstens, is just sitting there, and I help him out in Sydney. I'm also launching a virtual meeting room business separately, which enables people to join a meeting room from any platform without downloading any software or plugins. It's called Meet on VC, if you want to look at it. Great promotion, thank you. So the format of this is, as I said, fairly informal. I've got a couple of questions to kick things off, but if you have questions, somewhere there's a roaming person with a microphone. Deanna is roaming with a microphone, and you can grab her and ask a question. But my first question to kick things off is that we all had a conversation over the last week about meetings and conversations. And one of the things that's become apparent is that meetings have changed quite a lot over the careers of just us as a group of people. And some of us are older than others. The shift and the change in the way that we meet and the protocols and the etiquette that we use when we meet is interesting to observe, but more interesting maybe is what's going to happen going forward. So, Nicki, what do you think, what have you seen, and where do you think this is going?
From a technology sense, it's pretty easy. I think we can all look back and think, well, we used to have phone conferences and everything had to be face-to-face. So now it's quite normal to jump on Skype for Business and have those face-to-face conversations. I think what's interesting and more rewarding from an employee engagement point of view is that obviously I've got my background is pure tech, so I've seen Agile come in and become standard. So before, when you'd go to a meeting, you might all be face-to-face and you'd have an agenda and you'd follow the meeting. I think Agile now is very much part of the business as well, and so instead of turning up to a meeting to have a meeting, you're actually turning up and you're expected to collaborate and actually come out with clear objectives. So you're going in to solve a problem rather than run through an agenda or talk to people. So I think that to me is the biggest change, is that the expectations of what I want to take away from a meeting is now completely different. Otherwise, I just won't turn up to your meeting unless we're solving something in that.
Sorry, what was the question?
How do you think meetings have changed, Mark? You know, in the 2 years that you've been working, how have you seen? And what do you think they're going to be like? I mean, you know, I think you're the youngest on the panel. What do you think meetings are going to be like when we've all retired and you're still working?
Yeah, look, I think there's a real macro shift from, face-to-face meetings to a digital. Look, I only want to meet you, say, on GoToMeeting or Skype. Let's skip the coffee meeting. Let's cut to the chase, right? But in saying that, I think there's still that social element, right, where we humans, we desire that human connection. We want to look someone in the eye and go, do I like this person? Can I trust them? Should I even do work with them, right? So in saying that, the tools and the tech putting that aside, people still want to meet people face to face initially, I think. As that value chain progresses, less so. And towards the end, if they need a sign something, I think they still want to meet them, just make sure it's the same person. And I think the tools are great, but the culture of meetings is, really basic and simple. Can I work with this person? Really, that's a fundamental question. Should I work with this person, and why should I work with this person? So, tools aside, I think people still want to meet you face to face. So I'm just going to put that out there.
Yeah, I mean, we don't necessarily have to go in order, I guess, but
Go ahead, jump in.
I think that's interesting. You would think that people have less face-to-face meetings, but we're not seeing that in the meetings industry. There's no tail off. Obviously, people are also meeting online and via video. What we are seeing a lot of is beaming people into Karstens, whether it be here or our facilities in Brisbane and Melbourne. Today we had someone join a laptop from Perth, phone from Adelaide. We used a separate venue in Darwin, and then we had 30 people in Brisbane, and we were beaming someone in from Sydney. But they were still going to meeting places to do that. Oddly, when there's more than a couple of people. So I think the human interaction element is really important. People still meet face to face. I just wonder whether we're meeting more than ever. Now we've got more technology, because we're not seeing a drop off in the number of people booking with us, and I don't think other people are either. So it's quite weird. Definitely not a thing of the past.
Yeah, I agree. And I think we can use sort of an example of what's happening in the accounting industry, where you're finding all the accountants across Australia are going, oh, wait a minute, now we've got all the data. We don't have to do as much work behind the scenes. We actually have to, and I'm sorry, are any accountants in the room? I was about to be really insulting. Their accountants are going, oh my God, we actually have got to build a service-based relationship with people. And it's all about the relationships that we've got and how much information we can provide to our customers so that they can build their business, rather than cleaning up your Xero file. So yeah, there's definitely a huge shift towards relationships, and even more than ever. And I think the future of meetings is going to be really based around accountability. And depending on what tool you use, that information has got to be exported and pushed into people's own productivity systems, so that they can then action and take control over what tasks come out of the meeting. So yeah, meetings are going to be more accountable and more personal.
Are there any questions before I jump? Yeah, one at the back there behind you, Dee.
My question is that it's got a lot easier to have meetings these days. You could even maybe say that exchanging emails is a form of meeting. Do you think that the ease of having meetings and the amount of meetings we all have these days has actually cheapened the content within that meeting? What I'm trying to say is, maybe a few years ago you might have been going out for dinner or drinks with someone, and there was a value placed upon the conversation that was being had, whereas now you have a million conversations every day, and maybe they're not quite as valuable as the rarity of the old school type meeting.
I think that's where, because I'm really interested in organisational culture, so I think I find it very difficult to talk without my hands. But I think that's where your organisational culture will come into. And as I was talking before with, and I don't want to come off as an agile zealot, because I know everyone thinks agile people are agile zealots, but people, and to your point, you need to come in, and I think people need to be accountable. So I think it's, I would hope people would start placing that expectation on people. So you'd refuse meetings unless there's a point to them, which I think you would hopefully do anyway. As they become easier and easier to do, I think you need to kind of find a way to pull on the handbrake easier, or be more comfortable in doing that.
I've seen it's a lot easier to arrange a meeting nowadays. There's so many places you can meet if you want to have a physical meeting. You can book it all online. I've had people coming. We're just coming from the airport. We book a meeting online for 15 minutes time. Yeah. And it's easy when you're on a phone conversation or email. Let's just hop into the video room and have a meeting. Yeah, so I think there is a danger it becomes not as special, but maybe it's just the new normal. I don't know.
Yeah, people just creating meetings for the sake of meetings to feel important.
Wow.
But tell them no. Say no. What's the point? What problem will we solve?
People do it.
Be
They
brave. They do.
But I think that's a cultural thing.
I agree, yeah, 100%.
It's a company.
There's so many
If it's allowed to
organisations.
Yeah.
happen.
And you find some like I've worked in organisations where your whole day, and I'm sure you all will agree that your whole day is full up with meetings, so you've got no time for work, and that's just so counterproductive, and technology makes that problem worse. So, and then the opposite end, I've worked for an organisation where everyone had to have a workshop, so your days were constantly workshopping, so it was kind of the other extreme. So,
But you also have to take into consideration that everybody has a different outcome or objective for a meeting, so you may not actually get a result from that meeting.
yeah,
That doesn't mean it's a waste of time.
no.
So, guys, so I run a publicly listed tech company now, and we basically buy all the software companies and transform it into the cloud, right, under a new software as a service model, and moving those types of cultures into new types of transformative experiences and cultures has been an interesting journey for me. And my litmus test actually is to be able to judge people quite quickly, is how they operate in meetings and what type of meetings they actually have. So we actually have stand-ups on a regular basis. Who participates and is proactive in those is something that I observe. Nobody knows that, but I observe.
We all
How they?
know now.
Sorry.
We all know now.
Well, is this on the web? Is it?
Yeah, it's been The
Okay.
whole team.
But for me, it's really important. I mean, it's as part of changing the organisation and changing how we operate. It's actually becoming a litmus test for me on how the organisation's operating and who's standing up and actually taking action. And for me, it's really simple. Objective, our agenda, and outcomes you're trying to achieve. And if you're not participating in that process and you're not coming prepared, what the hell are we having meetings for, right? We're all busy doing other things. So it's actually how I'm actually using meetings as a litmus test to see how the organisation is changing. And if it isn't, things happen. So
I think sorry, I'm going to get off topic, so you need to bring me back a little bit. My hands. As organisations change to data, instead of running by a function as it used to do, it will run by a value stream and by a product. So you suddenly have cross-functional teams going, and so those meetings dynamics will change because people aren't going to be a bunch of accountants sitting together. There'll be one accountant with a lot of different people, and so the information, rather than it being in a meeting, will be a constant update through your stand-ups and through just those, I guess, whatever your technical equivalent of a water cooler conversation is going to be, like Slack or
Yeah, and I think that's an important point to consider, and we are here to talk about conversations, not just meetings. And conversations are an ongoing thing. The gentleman at the back pointed out that, we're on email, we're on Slack, we're on Skype, I don't even know how many channels I've got, Kik, I've got, all these different communication channels that I'm communicating with different types of people and different groups of people with the whole time. So there is this conversation flow that's almost constant from the moment I wake up to the moment I fall asleep. And meetings are only a small part of that. They're kind of this formal approach to conversations with a more formal etiquette or protocol around how we have that engagement or that conversation. There's a lot of other conversations that are happening. So actually, my next question, and maybe we'll start with who should we start with? Let's start with Laurel. Is those conversations that are not meetings, how are they changing? What's changing in the engagement and the way people are having those conversations?
That's a good question. I guess I would bring that one back to personal boundaries. And I think more than ever now, because we're so accessible on our phones, via iMessage or on Facebook chat, WhatsApp, it's open all day long. It's really going to be more about how people put their own personal boundaries in place for themselves, and also do that in a way that shows a lot of respect for the people that they're working with, whether they're a service provider and they're working with a customer, or they're working directly on a team project with a colleague. Did you have anything to add on that?
I think it's that instant gratification where you see a ping or a notification and you almost feel this duty, right? I don't know, just it's all contextual, right? Depending on that nature of relationship. But if it's your client or your boss or whoever that may be, an investor, you have that duty of care where you go, hang on, this is important, drop everything, respond. But Slack it's almost ubiquitous. It's like email, right? It's as bad as email because it makes that bloody sound. It's a really nice sound, actually. I like it.
I think you can turn it off.
For the record, I'll keep it on.
Do you want to answer? What, James?
No, I'm really gone. I mean, I just quite like your demonstration where the same conversation moved to a different platform. I thought that was quite good. You don't have to remember what you said on the other platform. Would save a lot of time.
I just wanted to say something. As a mother of a couple of teenage kids, I'm quite concerned about their ability to actually have a conversation. I've got some friends who have older kids, early 20s, and these kids can't even friggin' spell because they don't talk to people. They texting and whatever. That actually scares me. As a concept, the fact that 20-year-olds can't spell anymore because they don't know how to do the whole word, and that younger children that do communicate with their friends, indeed, actually can't stand in front of somebody or sit at a dining room table and have a conversation. I think that we genuinely have a problem, that there's a need for the technology and those things in certain parts of our life, like work. I think, you need your productivity. Go to a meeting for a reason, not for going to a meeting. And at the same time, have a conversation for the purpose of actually having a conversation. It's about learning about people. Like I came for that tonight, right? Having a conversation. How many more people can I meet? That's the interesting point. I think we're challenged now to have conversations for the right reasons. And technology is really kind of hurting that, I think.
I think our workspaces are changing to improve. Sorry, hello everyone. I'm sure you can hear me without the mic, right? But I think our workspaces are changing to improve conversation. I think we're moving to an activity-based working format where you're now sitting next to a different person every day, and so the ability to interact with different colleagues is actually improving conversation. So whereas technology almost distances people and keeps conversation to a minimum and pretty direct. Like if you look at our office spaces, like 200 George Street, for example, the new Mervat building just around the corner, it's a phenomenal kind of like setup where it just improves people's interaction. And then that interaction, that physical space, creates amazing learning and conversation because you're going to be speaking to different people whenever you're just having a coffee or when you turn up late and you get the dodgy seat by the lift lobby, but you might be sitting there next to the CFO. You never know, right? So that's
not a testament to the power of old school conversations as it was to technology-based conversations.
I love that because I think what we've done is we've gone. I think what we've done is we've gone.
We've both got a mic now.
Love it. We'll have a mic off, and then we'll just drop it and walk out. I'm assuming these are quite durable, right? If I did drop it, but I think it's what we're doing. I think we've distanced ourselves, and now we're kind of coming back together because we realise actually we want to be more connected to our peers and our colleagues, as opposed to technology. It kind of like it creates that ability to work from home and never speak to anyone, and then you actually learn F4, right? You unless people tell you on Slack. So we want to be encouraged to kind of like rebuild the village, as it were, right?
And that's part of the reason that co-working has exploded. Was opening probably faster now, about 4.5 new locations a day across the world. Massive explosion of that need to interact and have real conversations with people and not shut yourself off in a box with technology. Because it doesn't.
But co-working too, like I think of a continue, but co-working too, you're working with people from other industries, which is just fabulous, and that's a really good thing. And I agree with the collaboration piece, but I also think technology's been able to spur on communities that you wouldn't normally have, and I think. Everyone talks about Airbnb and they go, it was disruptive. But if you look at the positive side of that, it's actually created communities that you would never have been out. You just wouldn't lob into some stranger's home, a little while ago, and now it's acceptable to do that and they encourage you to do it. So you're creating a little mini community there, that technology. So maybe it's finding that balance of creating your village, and your village might just be somewhere different now, but you still have your village, because people still need that, and that's where we learn from.
Yeah. Well, what Airbnb has encouraged is people having face-to-face conversations and getting to know each other. So you're right, it's that balance of technology providing a platform for people to have real conversations.
So maybe we're kind of stuck in like a halfway point at the moment, where you're looking at a video screen. So I'll stop talking on a roll. You're looking at a video screen and it's very impersonal because you're just looking at someone on Skype. Yet then you have these opportunities where you can work locally and go and co-work and talk to somebody in a different company that might work, and you can, because chance favours a connected mind, So that's the perfect thing for co-working. And then you've got these villages on your personal level. When we were talking before, like, what's the group that you've...
Coded Jojo.
No, the Commons group. And so they've got this little community of people that are growing their vegetables, and then it's going to eat what they eat for dinner is from the local community, and then that's shot to Armidale. So there's this lovely little foodie group that's going on, and you just wouldn't have that without technology, and I think that's really fabulous. So there's those extensions, and it's the Skype in the middle that sucks the life out of face to face.
Nicki, there's one point I wanted to first mention earlier. It needs to be actionable and outcome focused, a meeting. And I think looking towards the future, I have 2 teenage daughters, so that's a complete, exciting learning experience for myself. But I think in the past we grew up with faxes, typing. I mean, I still, when I started to work, I had to type meeting notes on a typewriter. It's just, nowadays it's just unbelievable.
My son still does.
Oh, there we go. Okay. So probably intelligence, probably.
He's found a time machine.
I think it becomes more and more it comes from a structured environment to a very unstructured environment, and very informal conversations, very formal conversations. Today I saw on SlideShare a presentation about how Google works, and it was all about innovation. So how do you avoid killing innovation through meetings? How do you facilitate it? And I think the informal conversations that people have in informal meetings, then to take the outcomes of these meetings and make them transparent throughout the organization, so that you actually innovate and drive the innovation agenda. That's probably the key to a lot of this.
Yeah, so it's the conversation within that meeting. So instead of having a meeting, have a conversation and have some collaboration as part of that.
Yeah, but most importantly that, you have people of different personalities. Some speak out, others don't.
Yep.
And how do you capture the innovation talent of people who don't speak out?
I would say it's dependent very much on the culture of the organisation. Some organisations do really well in activity-based working, and some do really poorly. Not everyone is going to succeed in the same environment, right? So you have to have different environments for different types of culture. And my background and my experience working at various tech companies, I remember when I first went to Microsoft, everyone had their own office. And you could shut the door and code for 12 hours straight without any interruptions. You just ignored emails and meeting requests. And when someone said, "Why didn't you come to that meeting?" It's like, "Because I'm busy, dude. Get out of here." But now everyone's going to these open spaces. So if you're the kind of person that wants a shut door and wants to close and get stuck into something, then that open space doesn't help you. Whereas there's other types of people who really thrive in the open space, and you give them an environment with closed spaces, they can't talk to each other. Therefore, they can't engage, their brains don't work properly. And so you kind of have to understand the type of people that you've got in your organization in order to be able to create the right environment. And it works both ways. You create an environment, you'll attract the right kind of people to that environment, because there'll be people, "Oh yeah, it's an open space. I love working in open spaces because I get to talk to lots of people." So my question to follow through on that is, how should we deal with this spaces problem to enhance conversations?
What I'm seeing with the corporates, they're trying to innovate, and they're trying to take the innovation lab outside of their monolithic structure. So they're trying to outsource that space and go, we need to put them elsewhere, right? Because within their walls, they're too, linear thinking. And what I'm seeing is they've outsourced that function because they go, even if you're, working activity based, right, you're still in that kind of headspace, right? And they need to actually leave the building, go to another place where it's safe to fail, safe to take risks, and safe to actually call it as it is, right? And I think what I'm seeing is the corporates are trying to go to these startup hubs and, they're sponsoring all these events and they're going, how do we drink the Kool-Aid but also actually do what these startups actually do? How do we start moving fast, right? To your point, lean, agile.
Well, the answer is take their money away.
Yeah,
I mean, that's what forces the function of startups, right? Is they're hungry to make something happen.
Hungry, it's relative.
James, any thoughts on spaces?
And how? What was the question again, Neil? So
listening to the answer. We're talking a lot about how to have meetings, but conversations as a whole. How do we determine what the right space is to have a conversation? Should we all be sitting in a circle now?
We could. Yeah. We could try that. Sure. I mean, just from looking at what's happened in spaces themselves and that evolution. I mean, it used to be. I think the first meeting spaces happened when the railways started, and they built hotels and meeting rooms and hotels, and they started doing convention centres. And then, last couple of decades, we've seen the rise of smaller meeting places like this that are not hotels, and the serviced office mobs who've got lots of meeting rooms. And I think what's happening now, all of a sudden, is because of platforms like Airbnb type, but the Airbnb of workspace and meeting space, there's a lot of new startups selling anything from people's dining rooms to an architect's boardroom that gets used 10% of the time, to a whole host of different environments, which I suppose, including probably stone circles, which you could sit around. I haven't looked for one of those, but I'm sure that that's available as well. So I think the choices are there to pick spaces that suit your needs and suit what you're trying to achieve. I mean, I think the other thing that is beginning to happen a bit is, and we'll probably get onto technology in a minute, but bringing technology into a room. We at Karstens, we're still really relying on projectors. Yeah. People might have their own applications, they might use other software programs to be able to interact, but I think that move is only just starting to happen. Bringing technology in that enables a space to be more, to the participants in that space to share more, to interact more. And I think your product's a great example of how that can be done. But obviously Microsoft Surface is now starting to ship in big numbers and all that sort of interactive stuff. I mean, our kids have had it in classrooms a while, but it hasn't really, certainly in the for-hire meeting spaces like ours and like the Surface Office guys, hasn't hit. So I think there are two things. One, there's a huge explosion variety of spaces that's happening, which I think is quite interesting. There's another one called Breather in the States and London, which half of the meeting rooms are all lounges, the other half's a table, and I'm sure they've got some nice technology, but they're owned by one company, and CBD, rent it for an hour, rent it for a day. So it's quite interesting seeing what's happening, but the spaces themselves are evolving, and the technology is just starting to hit us, I think, in a positive way.
WeWork is coming as well.
Sure. We're only worth 15 billion now. Yeah.
Small.
Got about 35 locations, and with 15 billion, it's quite a lot.
We've got a question here.
Nicki, you talk about culture a lot. So, for an example, you have a large organisation which has an engineering department, a marketing department, a sales department. So, culture, yes, it's great, and I totally believe having the right culture in an organisation is key. How do you go about interacting with the 3 different or 4 different, 5 different, divisions within an organisation when you're using technology, when you're not actually understanding and how you actually should be communicating with an introvert or a salesperson or someone from a different, background or mindset?
So I think there's that piece around that you need to create the space, and you need to be mindful of when you're speaking with someone from different with just it's just diversity in conversation, whether they're from a different culture or a different way of getting their point across, and those. So you need there's those sort of protocols. I think when we're talking culture, when you talk about kind of there's engineering and there's accounting, what I believe will happen, and a lot of places are already doing it, and this is what I call true digitisation or true digital transformation. It's everything behind your website, and it's when organisations start going to sell that widget online. This is the value stream that I need to create. So suddenly, instead of it going, well, this is my part of the pie, and I pass this down the line, and those things, you'll have cross-functional teams come together. So those teams will then get a shared understanding of what it actually takes to get that piece from here to there. So the salesperson will understand, well, that's why that's hard for the engineer, yeah, because salespeople are always running off telling things that they shouldn't say. We'll hang it on salespeople and accounting. So you create those cross-functional teams, and that's when you're getting the cultural change. I think it's very easy to kind of, and there's that really good saying, but it's so overused, is culture eats, what is it, something for breakfast or whatever, strategy for breakfast, and it's like but and you get lots of messages about culture, but unless you're actually moving people into a position where they can clearly understand what it takes for one thing to move to the other, and they have empathy for that other team, that's when they start changing the culture. And that's when you get those conversations where you just talk to someone that you go, oh my God, we do it this way because that's what we thought that you wanted, yeah? And that's when that innovation comes from, because it's not the next Pokemon Go, it's these incremental discussions and incremental changes that you make to your process that changes your culture and allows people to. So that's why I kind of reacted with the skunk work idea. I think that's good, but I think if you actually want to be a player in the next 5 to 10 years, you can't go necessarily with skunk works. You need to change your culture, because it's just not going to work. You're just not going to be as competitive in the future, because other companies out there will be doing it value stream and product wise. I'm going to stop talking so you can talk.
Actually, before your question, I would like Laurel to answer that, because you're working with much smaller businesses and you're helping them get more online. And so what are you seeing their challenges are when, what is challenging them to have richer conversations?
Oh, that's a kind of a tough one to answer, because they wouldn't have multiple teams across the whole organization that they'd have to work with. It's really just getting everyone on the same page, and I think the biggest challenge for small businesses is actually the training and how to use the technology and use the tools, because you do have so many different personalities in an organization, and a lot of the times it actually comes down to tech savviness at the core. So it might not even be about their actual personality that's an issue. It's that they just don't understand what they're doing. I don't know, have you experienced that as well?
No, I'm like that.
Yeah. I didn't mean to look to my right. So I think it comes down to, at an individual level, probably it's the same thing in larger organizations, but it's just getting people trained up and across it. Mm-hmm. Right, like Sam, you've got a smaller team. Do you have anything that you want to add to that?
We just basically transitioned from so many different platforms from Microsoft to Google, and it was hard for me to get out. I use Google for my Gmail account as my personal account, but I didn't know how to silo things or label things up. And I'm still learning now, but I think we hold like weekly huddles and trying to push that development. We're only a team of 10 people, but yeah, it's just keeping that regular feedback and communication, and using things like Asana to track things as well has been great to see who's lagging behind and who's not using the tools. But Google, everything is tracked, so you can see who's kind of lagging behind and who's not picking up the bits that they need to. So it's been quite easy to see and track, but it's just keeping that communication open, really. But yeah, it's hard to get everyone on board at the same time.
I think there's this whole argument around tech and non-tech. I'm just going to, address the elephant in the room, because I can. I deal with a lot of tech people, right? And And it's not binary. It's not you're technical or you're non-technical. Everyone is a person, right? It's you either get it or you don't. But then as soon as you say you're one, then obviously you're not the other. But I think to talk to technical people, you just need to empathize, right? They're not this, mystical creature where...
Don't look at me.
Where, all forms of communication go above their head, right? They're still people, right? And I think what I'm saying is there's, people go, there's an art to talking to technical people. No, there isn't. It's just you need to treat them like you're one of their colleagues and you really want to get to the issue, right? It's not, okay, that's a tech person, so I need to adjust myself and how I deal with that person.
I'll disagree with that.
Let's have that conversation afterwards because we've got another question down here.
I'm just playing with, is it technology, is it space, is it culture, is it introverted, is it extroverted? And I've just spent 2.5 years helping an organisation move to activity-based working, and we've realised there's something bigger than that. And it's about how do we employ things that give people choice about what personally works for them, because the conversation between Charlotte and I is going to be the different conversation between you and I. And I think that's the really thing that's played out for me really heavily is how do we do that? How do we equip people well to do that and also give them the permission to have the choice about how to do that? And I think that's a very, very big question because a lot of people, whether it's a large organisation, a startup might be different. You seem to have more choice and can play. Larger organisations, even though we've given people the choice, they're not very brave because of something that they've learnt or a fear they've had. And I think it's a really, I don't know, it's a big, big question. Nick,
I do.
over to you.
I had an epiphany about 9 months ago. I've been in the industry for the tech industry for 25 years now. And I had an epiphany after so many years, about 9 months ago, after seeing this change that we've been trying to drive. And one of the things that we realised was that, there are tech guys and there are sales guys and so forth, and there is an appetite for risk and appetite for failure. And it's actually deep down inside for somebody. There are, I make it quite blunt statements around the fact that I view people based on there are 9-to-5ers, 10 to 3ers, there are 9-to-5ers, and then there are rest. Yeah, and either one of those types of 3 types of buckets, so to speak. And the way that we're changing the organisation, what I'm doing now is actually recognising tech and engineering and platform product teams based on 3 different horizons of evolution of where we're going. So there's your regular run-of-the-mill stuff that needs to be done on a regular basis around bug fixes and platform optimizations and all this stuff that needs to be done. And that is very well aligned for, it's going to come back to conversations because we're talking a lot about organisational design. But the thing that I'm experiencing is that there is a bucket of people that actually are just have that ilk of wanting to do that type of stuff. Mitigate, risk is not big for them. They just want to do what they do every day and so forth. Then aren't sort of looking at second or third horizon stuff and, not even care what's going to happen in 3 to 10 years' time, right? And there's another bucket of people who actually are interested in what they want to try and do and change things a little bit further out, about 18 months' time, yeah? And then there's another bunch of people and those type of people have actually got more of a risk appetite as well, right? And then there's another bucket of people that actually want to work some of that stuff that's so early that's called R&D, that is not going to come out anytime soon for at least another 3 to 5 years, say, in my horizon. They just want to play and fail, right? So this notion of failure is really important to be able to, have a gravitas towards, and it cuts across all parts of the organisation. And I experienced this firsthand in seeing it in the stand-ups, coming back to conversations and meetings, in that there were certain people that were engaging these types of forums, let's call them, or opportunities to converse that were not or were engaging, and the ones that weren't engaging enough are the ones that were thinking, shit, I'm trying to solve this problem here that, has got me deep into thought around what I'm trying to solve for, which might be, 2 or 3 years out, but I need space to work on, and this is actually becoming a nuisance for me, attending these stand-ups, yeah? sort of the back of the old days of Microsoft R&D, so to speak, right? In that sense, it's like going back to what you're saying, right? And so I'm experiencing that firsthand right now, and what we're doing is changing the organisation to understand that. And what we're doing, just in terms of office space, we're breaking out the dev guys to be in this completely own separate space in a glass partitioned environment, so we can actually see what they're doing. But the other experiment that we're going to start in the next month or so is for the 6-month period is to look at, we've got a distributed dev team environment around the world, and we want them to see each other. I'm a big believer in seeing people, you know. And so we're actually putting in some pretty big screens to actually have a live Skype session going 24/7. So when Joe says on Slack, let's have a chat, they can go up to that wall there and have a chat. Yeah? See each other eye to eye and connect. And it's the closest point of actually what we're doing. So we're going to run that experiment the next 6 months to see how it goes. But I'm a big believer that in terms of people and conversations, you've got to understand their appetite for failure and risk. And there's an important part in terms of
So Jess, invite Nick back in 6 months and let's find out how
it goes, yeah.
Is there another level to that communication you're talking about? Apart from failure, there's the definition of a company with a really good communication is the desire of the people at the top tier to actually listen and potentially be made to look a bit stupid by the people at the very bottom tier of the company. And I don't think that desire is there. I've worked in companies myself. My friend Gunter, a couple of rows in front of me, knows what I'm talking about, where we can see the top tier of the company making hideous mistakes that are going to lead to ruin, and they did. And we didn't have the avenue open to whoever, I don't know who it might be, is it the board, is it the CEO? They're busy people, but there were people within that company that knew what was going on and had some really good ideas, and there was a real good skill set within that of innovative people. But there wasn't the desire at the top level, because they're making shitloads of money and doing all right whether it goes bad or good, to listen to the people down there. So how do you solve that problem of that channel from the bottom of the company to the top of the company?
Evolution, baby.
Is that purely culture?
I think it's a relationship with risk. So you got to go, well, what's the risk appetite at the bottom? What have you got to lose if you're at the bottom? Not much. You're at the bottom, you can't go any lower. You get fired, so you get another job. Whereas the people at the top have a lot more to lose, right? So that channel is kind of, it's a asymmetrical risk bet, right? So you can say whatever you like if you're at the bottom, whereas if you go to the top and you say stupid things, you've got a lot lower to fall, right? So,
but that's a risk to the organisation then. It's
cultural.
Yeah, it's cultural.
Yeah, and I think it's very old school hierarchical command and control, and I think we'll see that change, because you've got companies that are smaller and they will speak up, or you've got execs that suddenly realise that collaboration platform is exactly their competitive advantage, and if they're not listening to it, then they're going to be left behind. Because anyone that's ever rolled out the project, you know on the first day, if everyone's sitting there going, this is doomed, your project's doomed, because the people that are doing it know that it's doing it, and you've got to listen to that. So I think culture of key players, the hierarchical thing of we know the best thing and we've got no appetite for risk, I think that will flip, because that lack of appetite for risk is going to prevent them from making changes and taking on opportunities now that their competitors will do, or new market entries will do on their behalf for them.
But that's what you said. You said that situation just led to the company failing anyway. Didn't you say that?
It did, yeah, but I think it's still a problem at more of an enterprise level, where I think the risk aversion is very much at the upper tier of the company, and I think it's personal risk aversion. They don't think it's going to risk the company. It's a positional and personal risk to go, maybe I need to listen to people several tiers below me to make the company successful. And I think it's how do you use platform or culture or meet or whatever it may be to give the guy that you don't even know his name access to have a chat with you and go, Jesus, he made a really good point, because that can really be the difference, right?
I'm going to wrap up this conversation, also known as the Nicki Show, And we can carry on the conversation next door where there's food and drink, and the conversation will flow probably a little smoother. And we can try and solve these problems, maybe not all of them tonight, but let's have those conversations and try and work them out. So I think it's been a great session. Thank you very much to our panelists for their input. Really